So the Ford Raptor's been the off-road king here for quite a while, but will the new Bronco cannibalize some of Ford's sales, or will the Ram T-Rex take a huge bite out of the Raptor's success? Let's talk about it. So when the Raptor came on the scene back in 2010, it really hit the market in a really never before seen way. Now obviously back a long time ago, Dodge came out with the Little Red Express and Ford had the Ford Lightning, and certainly there were performance pickups, but those are more street going vehicles and never really anything for off-road. But when the Raptor hit the market, it was wider than ever before. It had 35-inch tires, had crazy suspension for off-road, and it was really suited for going just about anywhere as fast as possible. That suspension really does soak it up. I actually reviewed a Raptor here on the channel, link down below. Definitely check that out. I had an excellent time with that vehicle. But when the Raptor first came out, it did have a V8. Later that was switched to the 6.2 liter V8 in the first generation, which was much more successful, and definitely the one I would go for if you were looking for an early Ford Raptor. But then when the second generation came out, it had the EcoBoost, and I know a lot of people were really turned off by that. A turbo V6 instead of a big boisterous V8 definitely turned some people off. However, it did add a lot of other good improvements. It had better suspension, a stronger and stiffer chassis, more suspension travel, more power, and overall, I think definitely some improvements that we can agree on. However, that's all old news. The Ford Raptor is not even being talked about anymore, and there's lots of new vehicles coming out. You have the Jeep Gladiator, you have the upcoming Ford Bronco, and just released here on Monday is the Ram T-Rex, which is now a Hellcat powered, basically a Ram Rebel that has been given somewhat of, let's call it the Raptor treatment. Obviously this is a Dodge vehicle instead of Ford, but basically it's wider, has crazy suspension. They're saying about 14 inches of suspension travel front and rear, which is just absolutely nuts. And they did slightly detune this new Hellcat motor to, I believe it's 702 horsepower instead of 707. So I think it'll still probably be enough. And let's talk about that here for a minute. So 700 horsepower, the Raptor with its turbo V6 still has 450 horsepower. So you're talking about a 250 horsepower advantage there with the Ram. You're talking about full-time four-wheel drive, all kinds of other stats. I'm sure you can find those in another video. But I really want to talk about how that's going to impact Ford. Now, Ford has been putting all of their resources towards the upcoming Bronco, which looks like that's actually going to be a great Jeep competitor. Now, the Jeep fanboys, I'm sure, will be saying it's no Rubicon. It doesn't have the solid front axle. It isn't trail rated and all like that. But ultimately, it definitely fills the same market. A lot of, let's call them mall crawlers or whatever you want to call them, people not necessarily that use their Jeep for Jeep purposes. You certainly see a lot of Jeeps out on the road, certainly a lot more going down the highway than you ever will on the Rubicon Trail. But that's just the reality of it. People like kind of the outdoor adventurous spirit. They like that image, and ultimately that is what's selling right now. And before, you kind of had to pick what you wanted. If you wanted an SUV, you got a Jeep Wrangler. When the Raptor came out, a lot of people went to that. And basically, you're seeing as many Raptors going bombing through the desert, and you see as many bros with flat bills driving them as you do lawyers, doctors. They are expensive vehicles, but ultimately they're made very comfortably. And it's a nice truck. It's a cool truck. And if you want to spend 60 to 80 grand on a pickup, that's a great way to do it. But with all these new vehicles coming out, again, you have that new Ford Bronco. That's going to add a lot of diversity to the Ford lineup, bringing an SUV into the mix. And obviously right now there's no Raptor version of the Bronco coming, but I think it's safe to assume that that is on its way. The early models, that'll get people interested in it. But obviously the true enthusiasts are holding out for a more potent, more powerful version, and I do believe that's coming. Now with this new Ram T-Rex, it is basically, it was clearly benchmarked against the Raptor. It one-ups the Raptor in nearly every way. Obviously we just talked about horsepower, the angles, the ground clearance, everything is just slightly better than the Raptor. But in my opinion, neither the Bronco nor the T-Rex will keep up with the Raptor in terms of sales, and that's for one huge reason. They're just not out yet. So that might sound like a silly excuse, but realistically, let's think about it for a second. Back in 2010, again, you did not have as many choices. If you wanted an off-road type vehicle, obviously you could go with an FJ Cruiser like I have decided to all these years later. But if you didn't want something like that and you wanted something a little bit more flashy, you were basically going with a new Wrangler, or again, in 2010, the Raptor came onto the scene. There really weren't a whole lot of options. But now let's fast forward here to 2020. Starting with Chevrolet, you have the Trail Boss, which admittedly isn't quite as, off-road adventurous, let's say. Also, the Chevy Blazer, if you decide to go that route, which I would not. But going with Ford, again, the Raptor has been updated. You go over to the Mopar products, you have the Jeep Wrangler, the 2 and 4-door, the Gladiator, the Rebel, the Power Wagon, now this new TRex. Go over to Toyota, you have all the TRD Pro vehicles. All of these fill the off-road niche and may be exactly what you're looking for. Now again, these aren't all as hardcore as the Raptor, but they don't truly need to be. Like I said, that Trail Boss, not a Raptor, not even a Raptor competitor, but it has a similar look. You know, it is beefed up, it does have road presence, and honestly, I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. Now, again, the Raptor is expensive. But this new TRex is even more expensive. It's starting around $70,000. They're saying the top trim levels will go up near $100,000, which is just absolutely insane. I know, at least where I live here in Virginia, I would not take a $100,000 vehicle on the trails, not even close to it. But our trails aren't even geared up for that, which is another thing to consider. If you have tight trails, maybe one of these trucks with 700 horsepower isn't your answer. Maybe you want something smaller and more nimble. But ultimately, there are a lot more other options. There's a lot more competition. And ultimately, the Raptor's proven. You know, it's been around since 2010. They made their improvements. You know, ultimately, when that truck first came out, it wasn't the best. People were jumping them. It had frame issues. The original, I think it was the 5.4 liter V8. That wasn't a great motor that Ford had. But the 6.2 was an improvement. In my opinion, the new EcoBoost, the 3.5 liter, I think that's an excellent motor. And I think it makes for an excellent truck. Ultimately, I would be very, very happy with that vehicle. But the biggest difference is you can get that vehicle. You can go to your local Ford dealership. You can shop around online, get your ideal used one if you decide to go that route. Ultimately, the Bronco, they're saying, is not going to be available for almost a year. It's been bumped back because of all the current events going on in the world, and you're not going to be able to get one. Currently, they're saying the TRex will go on sale here this winter. But with all the things going on in the world right now, it all remains to be seen. Will it go on sale this winter? Will it be bumped off until next spring, next fall? We don't know. But ultimately, the Raptor is still available, and the Raptor has the name recognition. You can say Ford Raptor to somebody like my dad who doesn't really know trucks, and he knows exactly what you're talking about. And until all this gets spread around and people know about these new vehicles, it all remains to be seen. So with more options for the consumer, that leads to hopefully lower prices, which I know is hard to imagine right now as we're talking about a $100,000 toy truck basically. But it should lead to more options, more innovation, and hopefully lead to a lot better products that we can get our hands on here in the future. Let me know what you all think. Leave all of your thoughts down there in the comment section. I cannot wait to hear what you all think. And if you were going to go out, assuming all these vehicles were available, which one would you buy? For myself, you see what I got. I'm very happy with my FJ Cruiser, but all these new vehicles are definitely enticing. I would love to pick up a Ford Bronco. I still love the Raptor, and that TRex with 700 plus horsepower definitely sounds like an awesome vehicle. But thank you all very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We'll catch you next time.